We have Scott Palmer here from the NRC. He introduced himself earlier. Scott is helping us with an effort that we want to put in place to do more of a membership drive for the organization. Even though we have a lot of folks in the room today, which is wonderful, we're still not really reaching large parts of the neighborhood, and we're still not really representing the neighborhood as well as we could be, or as well as we should be. So Scott, with the Neighborhood Resources Connection, has a lot of experience doing this. He recently helped Maryland and Kennedy Park Neighborhood Association do a really interesting survey and outreach effort. Are you ready, Scott?
I am, if you are.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what Marty has asked me to do basically is summarize for y'all what we've done with Kennedy Park. And the idea is that if you'd like to do something like this or adapt it for your purposes, NRC stands ready to help. So I just wanted to share with you what we've done with Kennedy Park over the past couple of months. And first of all, I wanted to say NRC is not the one really doing this. Maryland is here on behalf of Kennedy Park, and I wanted to give a huge shout out to the residents of Kennedy Park and the members of the Kennedy Park Neighborhood Association. This grew out of the Neighborhood Leadership Academy, and the focus of that program was making your organization be what we call the representative voice of the neighborhood. And that means shifting your focus from what the individual members might want to what the neighbors want for their neighborhood. Kennedy Park Neighborhood Association really took this to the next level, and so this kind of became above and beyond in addition to that. But I just wanted to say we're here to help, but it is an advisory and a support role. But I wanted to begin by saying a lot of organizations, especially smaller neighborhood associations, have a recruiting challenge, and that challenge goes something like this. When they're reaching out to people and asking, hey, would you like to be a part of our organization? The question sometimes is why? Well, what do you do? And the answer sometimes is, well, we have meetings. Well, how many of you are there? Well, there's a handful of us. And what are you about? Well, we're just making the neighborhood a better place. And the sales pitch often is not as compelling or as interesting as we know it can be, because you're here because you have a passion for your neighborhood. So what this is about, it's about changing that conversation to something that can be not only more engaging for the neighbors, but more effective for you as a recruiting effort. We call this a neighborhood survey, and in the world of community investment or planning, you might think of neighborhood surveys, the end game of that being gathering data. And you compile the data and you put it in a book, and that data is used for something else. This is a little different. It's not necessarily about the data. What this is about making better connections with neighbors. So the strength of this neighborhood survey, as we're going to present it, it's a process by which you get out into your community and make the kind of connections that help grow your organization. So here are the steps that we went through with Kennedy Park. Yes, there are 9 numbers on that screen. No, it is not as complicated as that leads you to believe. So what I want to do is cut to the chase and tell you about a couple of the main ones, and then go back and fill in the blanks quickly if you'd like that. But the 2 main steps in all of this, number 1, yes, there's a survey. It's a neighborhood survey. We'll do it door to door. But the second of that kind of 1-2 punch, if you will, is that survey ends with an invitation to a visioning session. And it's the session where you come together and you meet those neighbors face to face. You've already met them once at their doorstep, but bringing them into the room and asking them, tell us more about what you would like for your neighborhood. That visioning session is the second part of the process, and those 2 things together are what we found, and what I think Kennedy Park is finding, are a really effective outreach method. So let me tell you about those 2 main steps, and then we'll fill in the blanks. The surveys are door to door. Our advice is, yes, there is a place sometimes for emailed surveys, Google Forms or whatnot. But in this case, we feel like since the point is building relationships and making those connections door to door is the way to do it. The process that we suggested to Kennedy Park was to do it in teams of 2, not just for safety reasons, but because you're having a conversation, and you're not presenting them a survey, you're asking them open-ended questions, and they're having a conversation with you. So it helps to have somebody whose job it is just to write things down. One person to have the chat, the other one to capture. So if you're familiar with qualitative data methods, if you work in academia or social sciences, this is classic qualitative research. Theming and coding will come later, but for the most part, it's just having a conversation and writing those things down. We kept the survey simple, 2 questions. The first, of course, from what's your name and how long you've been in the neighborhood, and can we have your email address? 2 main questions are, what do you like about this neighborhood? We wanted to start on a positive note. And then the second was, tell us your constructive suggestions for the neighborhood. How you phrase that question is kind of open, but it's important that it be phrased by everybody who's out there asking the survey questions so you can get consistent results. What do you dislike about the neighborhood? What would you like your neighborhood association to focus on? it's wide open. But we suggested just a couple of questions to keep it simple and short because you're ending that conversation with invitation. Thank you for your input. We really appreciated what you've told us. We'd like to give you another chance to add to that. Here's a flyer, here's an invitation to our visioning session, which is coming up in a couple of weeks or a month, whatever you decide. We'd love to see you back. We'd love to continue this relationship. So that's how that ends. The vision session then is what comes next. That's what you've just invited people to. This is where you might present the compiled survey data. These are the results of the conversation. The responses where you let the residents see what all the other neighbors said, but then prioritize the results. Oh yeah, that resonates with me. I didn't think of it during the survey, but I do think this is a priority for the neighborhood as well. And the way we did that, everybody likes peeling stickers and putting them on the wall, right? And so we did, you've probably seen this at a professional development conference. All of the results were on the wall. We gave everybody a handful of stickers. Each sticker represented a vote. Use your stickers to vote for the issues that you would like your neighborhood association to focus on. If you want to put 5 stickers on one thing, you can, if you like that idea. So they really enjoy just going around the room and applying stickers on the wall. Those are the 2 main steps that we've asked that Kennedy Park engaged in. So if this is something you're interested in, here are the things that you might like to do yourself to go from beginning to end. Number 1, tell the neighborhood you're coming. The sign is a good thing, and I think that you're already underway with that. Look at that, right? So, love it. A handful of these scattered around the neighborhood gets you started, but the reason why you want a good visual representation is because the second thing you do is create your survey materials. The first material you want to create, we want people when they knock on the door and have, you know, people looking out the peephole at us or pulling the blinds back, who's at my door, to recognize this from the sign they've already seen. So you'll see here that they're holding a clipboard right here, and they've got name tags that match those neighborhood signs. So that way they'll recognize, oh, the neighborhood survey people are here, and it's not a debt collector or something like that. And then of course you want to prepare your survey script in advance. You shouldn't read it, but do prepare it so that you can have the consistent conversation from survey team to survey team. Have a form to write down their responses, and then of course prepare the leave behind invitation. After you've conducted the survey, prepare the data then for the visioning session. You've got a lot of surveys conducted at Kennedy Park. They were able to do 50 surveys, so that's, what was it, Marilyn? 5 teams, each doing 10 surveys each, right. So that was 10 surveyors out gathering 50 results. We compiled that data. We spotted some themes, so if we saw that a lot of people were kind of saying the same thing, we compiled that into one issue or one theme, and then created the boards that went onto the wall. And then of course the last thing is you want to give them one last effort, or one last opportunity to show up to the visioning session, because now you have their email address, now you have their phone number, because you asked them for it on their doorstep, so do that outreach. Make that phone call that says, hey, we're having the visioning session, we'd love to have you come back. We're going to let you see the results, and we want to hear more of your ideas. Then you do the visioning session, people put the stickers on the wall. The information you get from that is valuable. And what do you do with it then? Well, now what you're doing is you're recommending objectives. This is how you as an organization can decide what you want to do going forward. Your activities, your agenda, if you will, coming up with things that you now know are aligned with what the neighbors want for their neighborhood. The idea being that you've got that resident input that's going to let you communicate better with them. Kennedy Park, I'm going to pass out. I'm sorry I did not bring enough copies for everybody, but if you can share with somebody. These are the objectives that Kennedy Park came up with as a result of their visioning session data combined with their survey data. And you'll see that these aren't specific projects. These are simply things they would like to accomplish. For example, remove overgrowth of trees and brush. Reduce the number of below code houses. Reduce trash and clutter. So if you think of these as objectives, the question then becomes, okay, well, how do we move on these objectives? And the last step of the process, once you've presented this to the membership, and the membership says, yes, these are objectives that we like, is to refer those objectives perhaps to committees. This is a great way for any organization to kind of divide the work up amongst the membership and to allow members who have certain interests to find things in the objectives they might like to be involved in. For example, one of the Kennedy Park objectives has to do with engaging youth. If you like kids, if you like working with kids, boy, what a great opportunity for you that might be different than just social media or something else. They referred these objectives to committees. In some cases, Kennedy Park actually recently created a couple of committees with new committee chairs as opportunities for the people that they just met at the door-to-door survey and at the visiting session to be involved in the organization in a way that they already told us they were interested in. So you can see how we're making these connections now. It's a membership drive, it's boosting the organization, but it's doing it in a way that the neighbors care about. Finally, once you have some results and hopefully some short-term results from the objectives that are easier to obtain first, you've got things to talk about. So now the next time you have that conversation, what do you do, what do you about, well, we don't have meetings, we're working on this issue, or we're working on that issue because you and your neighbors told us that's what you want us to do. It's a little bit more powerful connection, and you've got more people at your table helping you with it. It's a process that if you're interested in doing, let NRC know. I know Marty, you and I, and the others on your team will probably be talking more about that, but I wanted to share the nuts and bolts of that with you so that you all would know what you can start with and what we can help with if you want to change it up from there. I think that's it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Marty,